Hey, where you going, man? Where you going? You going to Ducky time? I want to come to Ducky time. It's Ducky time. It's Ducky time. It's Ducky time. Woohoo!
Welcome to another episode of Ducky Time. Today, friends, we're going to talk all about deciduous trees. Now, what does the word deciduous mean? If you said that it means that the leaves fall off in the fall, then you got it, dude. Now, most of our deciduous trees are broadleaf trees, meaning they have leaves like this, where they're a nice flat leaf. However, there are some trees, like the bald cypress and the tamarack, that are coniferous deciduous. So they have cones, and that's where their seeds come from, but they also lose their needles in the fall. Right here is a black ash, and one of the ways you can tell is because it has opposite branching. Very few trees around here actually have opposite branching. Most have alternate branching, like this tree right here. Now you may be saying to yourself, Ducky, what does that mean? Alternate branching, you have a branch right here, and then a branch right here, and then a branch right there. So they alternate which side of the branch, which side of the big branch they go on. Opposite branching, if you look at this little guy, the branches are opposite from each other on the trunk of the tree. So opposite versus alternate. Friends, these are both birch trees right here. However, this big guy on my left is a white birch tree, and this little guy is a yellow birch. Now, one of the ways you can tell is because the white birch peels off in these big sheets, and the yellow birch peels off in little itty bitty baby sheets. So, white birch, yellow birch, and birch bark is really good for starting fires. Here's another example of a yellow birch, and you can really see how it peels off in the little sheets as opposed to peeling off in the big sheets like in the white birch. And this tree, it is the second fastest growing tree in North America. It can grow, when it's a young tree, it can grow up to 6 feet a year. Now, if you notice these deep vertical lines on the tree, and if you were to look up, I don't know if the video can catch it, but if you were to look up, you can see catkins, little flowers starting to grow. This tree, if you haven't guessed it already, this is a cottonwood tree. You can tell it's a cottonwood because of the vertical lines and the catkins. And then later in late spring, early midsummer, it forms what kind of looks like cotton, and it billows through the world. And when it gets into your mouth, it makes you go like this. So, my friends, this is the basswood.
Alternate branching, red buds.
As alternate branching with red buds, and if you break the little buds off, they are edible. And that, my friends, is a basswood tree. This is a cherry tree. You can tell it's a cherry tree because if you look at the bark, it looks kind of like potato chips coming off of it. And that's very unique to cherry trees. Bet you can't have just one. This tree right here, it may look dead, but friends, it's not. This is a tree called a tamarack. Now, the tamarack tree is very unique amongst the tree world because it is a deciduous conifer tree. So it has, when the leaves grow back, there'll be needles like the pine trees and the spruce trees around it. However, it's deciduous, meaning that the leaves will fall off every fall. But it's coniferous, not to be confused with carnivorous. It's coniferous because it bears cones, and the seeds of this tree are in cones. Here is a red oak. Now, one of the ways you can tell it's a red oak without the leaves is the ends. You see how there's a cluster of buds. That is very specific to the red oak. And this is how the acorn attaches in a red oak. If you have leaves of the trees, you can tell it's a red oak because the red oak has pointy tips on the ends of the lobes. White oak has rounded tips. So an easy way to remember it is red oak is pointy, and so if you use a point, you get blood. Blood is red. Red oak, pointy. There you go. White oak is blunt, and no blood, no red. All right, friends, this tree right here, it creates these giant nuts that look like this. And before they fall, they have a big yellow coating around them. Now that yellow coating was used to dye fabric back in the day. And if you peel too many of them off, and by too many I mean at least one, your hands will turn this beautiful shade of yellowy brown. Now we are talking about, of course, about our friend the walnut tree. Walnuts, one really fun thing about walnuts is those big seeds, when they fall, as they decompose, they leach something into the soil. They leach a chemical into the soil that causes other plants to not be able to grow around them. So it's one way that the walnuts can protect their area and make sure they don't have too many things growing up around it. So this tree right here is the chestnut. And one of the ways you can tell it's a chestnut is because of these seed pods. They're very prickly, very similar to a porcupine. And the nut grows inside. Ouch. And the prickers keep it safe from things like squirrels and other animals that would try to eat them. Notice the bark on this branch. Now you may think to yourself, this tree looks sick and like it's dying. But guess what? It's not. This is a tree called a sycamore tree. Now you can remember that because sycamore, the bark looks like it's sick, but it's not. So that's how you can tell the bark of the sycamore tree. It looks like it's flaking off, but it's not. And this is also the tree in the Bible that Zacchaeus, the wee little man, climbed up so that he could get a better view of Jesus. Not this particular tree, but one just like it. This is one of my all-time favorite trees. It is a shagbark hickory. Now it gets its name from the way that the bark peels up like this. And right there and right there. Now the bark doesn't start peeling until the tree is at least 50 years old. It has compound leaves, so if we look up at the leaves, it means each little leaflet, each one that looks like one leaf is actually part of a bigger leaf, and each leaf has 5 to 7 leaflets. The shagbark hickory is also a really great place for Indiana bats to live. They'll crawl up underneath the shags and they'll stay there during the day. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Ducky Time. Join us next week when we talk all about animal evidence and things that the animals have left behind.